Do you travel the world doing this sort of thing, going to places where people love your movies, though?
Yes.
And
yes.
what's that like?
And because this is my 50th year, so a lot of the celebrations are happening all over the world. And of course, I feel very overwhelmed by all the love and appreciation. So I do it, yes.
You must have started as a child then. Were you a child actor?
I don't think I should reveal to you how old I actually am. Suffice it to say, I started young.
I know a lot of fans of Bollywood films absolutely will know who you are, but for many who may not be familiar, how did you get started? How did it all begin for you?
You know, I came from an artistic family. My father was a poet and my mother was a very well-known stage actress. So they were the two great influences in my life. And a time came when I decided that it's acting that I wanted to do seriously. And so I joined the Film Institute of India and came out with a gold medal for best acting student. And then it was really quite easy. I didn't have a period of struggle like they normally say. So the first film that I did was Shyam Benegal's Ankur, which was at that time referred to as parallel cinema. So we won a lot of awards for the film, including Best Actress, National Actress for me. But it also did well, very well commercially, which was a very rare thing because it was made on a very small budget. And that then paved the way from a beginning of that system. Otherwise, we were all wedded just to the mainstream
The Hollywood
formula film. But then very soon in my career, I also decided that I needed to do mainstream cinema as well, because then I would be expanding my fan base and they would be curious enough to come and watch even my art house films. And I've been phenomenally lucky in that. Sometimes I say in spite of me, not because of me. But so I've had a very long career span. And I'm really grateful for it. Obviously, when I started 50 years ago, I had no idea that it would, be like 50 years, I'd still be working. I still have a lot of projects going. And I've also done Steven Spielberg's Halo, the series based on the game. So it still seems like the world is open. Good for actors.
Yeah, well, many actors don't have that longevity. They don't have, I guess, the luck and the talent and the obviously the desire for the audience to still see you.
I think that I have been lucky to be at the right place at the right time. And also because even when I was playing the leading roles, very quickly I moved in from the song and dance drama situation where the heroine was basically just an appendage to the hero. And I started doing substantial roles. And I was successful with that. And I think that that increases one's longevity because you're not just known for your looks and your body.
Right.
You're known because you are taken as a serious actor. And the time has come now in Indian cinema where there are much more substantial roles for women. I have over the years, because of the background I came from, where my parents believed art should be used as an instrument for social change. So I have refused to do films which show women as subservient to men. And I think that has helped a lot because it also moved into activism with women's rights, etc. And
that must have been a real challenge in India.
Not so much of a challenge at one point because they always treated me like I was a queer kettle of fish. But then when I took some radical decisions like go on a hunger strike for 5 days in the middle of the streets of Bombay, that of course was unheard of.
Why
and
did
there
you
were
do
many
that?
speculations. It was for the slum dwellers whose homes had been demolished, and the government policy was to give them alternative accommodation, which they weren't giving in that thing. And I'm very happy to tell you that we actually did manage to get them alternative accommodation. And there was a time when, of course, I was trying to balance my activism with my work in films. And that was a bit, like you said, challenging. But then I found my way into Parliament, and I've been a member of Parliament, nominated by the President of India for 6 years. So what it allowed me to do was, because I was working at the grassroots with people, it allowed me in that space to bring the voice of the grassroots to policy level. Otherwise, a lot of times policies are made without taking the people who are concerned into consideration. And so I think that was a good time for me.
And obviously, your profile in film helped you with your
Oh,
activism.
yes, of course.
Yeah,
Yes.
by a big part.
Yeah, I mean, I've made like 160 films.
160?
Yeah.
What's the most films you ever made in a year?
I think 12.
12? Wow.
12, and sometimes
That's a lot of work.
Sometimes as insane as doing one film from 7 to 2 in the morning, and then the other film to 2 to 10 in different studios. I mean, it's unimaginable. Today, it's no longer like that.
Yeah.
Today, it's much more systematic, much more organized, and all that has changed.
You've also come through the whole evolution of Bollywood too, because in years past it would have been many South Asian people would know about Bollywood actors, but now it's much more generally accepted in places like the U.S. and Canada that people will go to Bollywood films, and you must have seen that happening.
Yeah, but somehow I'm not very comfortable with the term Bollywood because
No?
it suggests that all of Indian cinema is an imitation of Hollywood, which of course it isn't, because we make the largest number of films in a year. We make
Yes.
1,000 films a year, and there is a very substantial regional cinema. There's also the art house cinema. So Bollywood is loosely for a term where it's more formulae
Right.
film, and it has the song and dance routine. But otherwise, Indian cinema is very disparate as well. And I think you cannot talk about Indian cinema by just referring to it as Bollywood. But I think another interesting thing in the West has happened as the world shrinks and becomes a global village. It's becoming apparent that it has to be a two-way communication. It cannot only be the West influencing the East.
Right.
And so also what the market dictates is let's have people from all over the world, because that only increases our market. Mm-hmm. So if you take, for instance, Asian actors, particularly Indian actors who have huge fan followings, then you increase your market. Also, Asian actors have been struggling for a long time, why can't we have colorblind casting? Why should we only be chosen because of our ethnicity? And finally, when I did Halo, for instance, I played Admiral Parangoski. I didn't have to color my eyes. I didn't have to change my accent. I was taken just as I was. And there were Korean actors, there were Canadian actors, there were actors from so much as China and everywhere. Mm-hmm. And it was truly a microcosm of the world. And that, I think, the film industry is now starting to allow.
What was that experience like, shooting that?
I know absolutely nothing about the game, and I don't know anything about that. But of course, it had Steven Spielberg's name attached to it, so it was a no-brainer.
Yeah.
But what was very interesting is my 14-year-old nephew, who's never given the time of day to me. When he heard I was doing Halo, he suddenly looked at me with, "Oh my God, my aunt is really interesting." And then I got connected with many people for whom Halo has been part of their growing up. Yeah. And the experience was lovely. It was very nice cast and crew.
What's it like when you come to a community you haven't been to, like Edmonton, and you're going to meet a lot of people here who are going to be longtime fans, mm-hmm. I know. And we have a huge South Asian community here from India, Pakistan, various places around that area who will know you very, very well. Mm-hmm. And it must be interesting to hear from people from a totally different place that you haven't been before.
It was so wonderful to arrive at Edmonton Airport and suddenly be greeted by a whole host of personnel from Air Canada, all of them of Indian origin. And there were like about these 10 people just hugging me and taking photographs. And I said, my God, how far films travel. Of course, it feels very good.
Well, you wouldn't be aware of this, but there's a recent story in Canada about the resurgence in people going to the theaters in Canada. And a great part of that was to see films from Asia and South Asia and just different parts of the world, and how that has been a big part of actual people going to the theaters back into the seats instead of streaming.
Yes, but the thing is, Canada has always been a multi cultural space, and it has always included people from all over. So that's to be expected in Canada, really.
Yeah.
But it was more difficult to get into the West and in Europe. But there were many pockets all over the Middle East, Africa, China even, that are familiar with Indian culture and have been very loyal fans. So, like I said, I think it's also a healthy thing to happen, because it really has to be a two-way communication, particularly with cultures, because the time has come when we've realized that we need to understand cultures in terms of themselves rather than by standards that we impose or what the West imposes on the East.
Well, Shabana, I hope it's a wonderful experience for you here in Edmonton. I know a lot of your fans are very excited to see you and experience the films that you've done. We really appreciate you coming in this morning.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.